STEM fans, are you ready? Let's hear it for the world-class NASA STEM Stars team. From NASA centers across the country, we present Joanna Dakota Tyler, Lindsay Jacobson, and Mark Kutcher.
Yay! Welcome to a very special episode of NASA STEM Stars. I'm Jen Hudgens, your host, and I come to you from the Kennedy Space Center here in Florida. And we have a very special panel of speakers that are here to celebrate the James Webb Space Telescope STEAM Day event. So welcome, Dakota Tyler, Lindsay Jacobson, Joanna Smith, and Dr. Mark Kutcher. So let me just give you a brief bio of who we are looking at on our screens today. So we've got Lindsay Jacobson. She's here with us. She's a senior at North Carolina State University studying aerospace engineering with a minor in industrial engineering. She's interned with the Webb Space Telescope program at NASA for the past 2 summers, working on risk management for Webb and future space telescope concepts. So welcome, Lindsay. We have Dakota Tyler. Oh, sorry, Lindsay. He's a former collegiate football player and NASA intern for the Webb program. He's currently a second-year PhD student in astronomy and astrophysics at UCLA. His research interests include exoplanet atmospheres, demographics, and of course, observing. Welcome, Dakota.
Hey, thanks, Jen. Happy to be here.
I'm happy that you returned to us. We also have Joanna Smith. She's currently an education intern on the Webb Telescope team at NASA. She holds a bachelor's degree in meteorology from the University of Northern Colorado and a master's degree in education from Colorado State University. Currently, she's a middle school teacher and worked with the Webb team during her summer internship writing a children's book for Webb, developing lesson plans, and contributing to community outreach events. So welcome, Joanna. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And then lastly, we have Dr. Mark Kutcher. He's the Citizen Science Officer for NASA's Science Mission Directorate, looking after 25 different NASA citizen science projects, connecting more than 1.5 million volunteer scientists from around the world. As an astrophysicist, Dr. Kutcher began his work on citizen science by leading 2 popular projects, Disk Detective and Backyard Worlds Planet 9. So welcome, Dr. Kutcher, to the program.
Thank you, Jen. I'm so happy to be here.
No problem. I'm so glad you're able to join us today. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right in because we've got a limited amount of time, and I know we've got a lot of participants that want to chat with all of our panelists today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back to Dakota and Lindsay, who actually was on an earlier episode of NASA STEM Stars last summer during their first internship with Webb. So what I really want to do is catch up and find out what kind of work you all have been doing. So Lindsay, can you first share with us what you did last year and then what you've been working on this summer?
Of course, yeah, thank you. So my last summer was spent working on risk management for Webb. So what I was doing was going through all of the risks at sort of this late stage in the mission and making sure that all of them, just ensuring that they were all accepted for good reasons and tracking all the reasons why they were accepted. So it was a lot of documentation and just cross-checking everything that's already been done by all the amazing engineers on Webb. This summer, I actually started looking at Webb on the end of the mission to look at what lessons we've learned from risk management on Webb and how we can apply them to new space telescope missions. So looking at missions that have been proposed in the recent decadal survey to see how we can leverage lessons learned from the engineering of Webb and apply them to these new concepts. So it's really cool to be able to carry what Webb has done into the future and see how it can help us build even better telescopes in the years to come.
So, Lindsay, what makes you most excited about this upcoming mission that's getting ready to launch at the end of this year?
Well, okay, Webb has a special place in my heart. I was really inspired by Hubble in high school, and that's what made me want to get into space in the first place. We had a whole unit on Hubble and kind of its images in my high school environmental science class, and that made me want to be an astrophysicist at first. So, just all of the space telescopes stuff has been really near and dear to me since then. So I'm really excited to see Webb take on the role as sort of the successor to Hubble and see what amazing things we'll get out of it as well.
I am looking forward to it just as much as you are, for sure. I've had my eye on it for a few years now, and now we're down to launch, so I'm excited. Dakota, let's get to you, and let's hear about what you've been up to for the last year.
Yeah, thanks. So when I was working with Webb last summer, which seems like a long time ago, I was kind of working on a literature review for the field of exoplanets as a whole. I'm an exoplanet scientist, so I'm going to just shamelessly talk about the exoplanet applications for Webb. And I was kind of trying to see where our boundary knowledge was with exoplanets as a field, and thinking about the ways and kind of like some expectations or projections that we had for what we'd be able to learn from Webb, and the various ways that it's going to be able to kind of further our knowledge in exoplanets. And this past year, I also started my PhD program at UCLA. So I'm going into my second year there. And I'm also working on exoplanets and working on a project that is something similar to what, to at least one of the ways that Webb is going to contribute to the field. And that's transit spectroscopy, like studying the atmospheres of exoplanets.
So do you have future goals to work at NASA, or where do you want to go from here?
Oh yeah, NASA. Yeah, I definitely. It was a great experience to do the internship with NASA, and like a great connection to make. If NASA will have me, I would love to have a future together.
That's awesome. Well, best of luck to you. Let's go ahead and jump over to Joanna. I'm particularly interested in her work because I am an education specialist and taught middle school science for years. So, Joanna, can you share with us what your work has been like this summer telescope team?
Yes, so I had such an amazing experience on the James Webb Space Telescope team this summer. I got the opportunity to do lots of different things within education and outreach, including, like you mentioned, I got to work on a children's book. I got to work on lesson plans that were accessible for middle school and high school teachers. And I got to be involved with outreach for Webb. So I got to help with the pledges and the support of community events for Webb across the country. So it's been definitely a learning experience, and I got to meet a lot of great people.
So how does it feel to be an intern working on a project like the James Webb Space Telescope? Like, what do people say when you tell them what you've been doing this past summer?
Well, the first question they asked me is, "Oh, I didn't know you're an engineer, are you?" And I love that question because I like to say, no, I'm not. And the beauty of NASA is there's so many different job opportunities and ways to be involved. And I don't think people usually think that when they hear NASA. So I love to correct them and tell them that there's lots of different things to do, including education. And it's been great. I love the fact that I can tell my students that I'm involved in NASA because they think NASA is really cool. And I love to be able to tell them, like, hey, I applied many times to NASA and I didn't get in right away. I worked really hard. I changed my habits and I eventually was able to get my goals accomplished. And so I kind of use NASA as an example for them.
That's a great perspective. And I really hope the students that are watching today hear your words and take that to heart. You don't have to be just an engineer to work at NASA on these great projects like Webb. Let's go ahead and move over to Dr. Kutcher, because I know he's got some great ideas for how everyday people can get involved in NASA's work. They don't have to go in and apply to be an intern. There are other ways. So, Dr. Kutcher, do you mind sharing with us what you do at NASA?
Oh, I'd love to, Jen. And I want to express my appreciation to Joanna and Dakota. And I really enjoyed hearing the stories. Um, I get to help lead NASA's Volunteer Scientist program. We call it Citizen Science. It has nothing to do with being a citizen. It's just volunteering to spend some time sciencing with us. If you have half an hour, if you have 10 minutes, you can do real NASA science, really important NASA science, I might add, and some of it's connected to the James Webb Space Telescope, which everybody is so excited about. You can find all of our citizen science projects at science.nasa.gov/citizenscience, the page that you can see on your 25 projects. At least 13 of them have to do with astronomy, and since James Webb has such a big impact all across every subfield of astronomy, pretty much all of those projects are going to have some connection to James Webb. You can learn more about our program by following us on Twitter. The next slide shows our Twitter feed. Do NASA Science on Twitter with updates on all those different ongoing projects that need your help. And many of our citizen scientists have gone on to become interns and gone on to write peer-reviewed publications in science. You can become a published scientist. At our website, you can see on the next slide, photos, profiles of citizen scientists, maybe like you, who have become named co-authors on scientific papers through their work on NASA Citizen Scientists. We're so proud and so lucky to be working with talented folks from around the world on our science. There are two projects in particular I wanted to highlight that have relatively immediate connections to James Webb. The first one on the next slide is Exoplanet Watch. And this is a project intended for people who have backyard scopes. You're an amateur astronomer. On the top, Dakota mentioned, which is planets that transit their stars, planets that pass between the Earth and the star as they're orbiting the planet. And this project asks people to help store these planets to keep them up to date so James Webb can follow them. And the second project I wanted to highlight is Backyard World's Planet 9, which I helped found myself a couple years ago.
Well, it sounds like we're losing Mark's signal. So if I can just jump back to our group that we have there, and I want to ask, how do students or interns get involved? How can you apply to be an intern if you're in college now and you're interested in working on projects like what you all have been doing? Dakota.
Yeah. So when I think that I saw an advertisement or something like that, maybe on Twitter, when I was doing my bachelor's in physics, and yes, it's pretty easy to apply to the internship portal for NASA. There's facilities obviously spread across the country, and there's positions in fields, from more creative and artistic aspects to communication. Obviously, there's engineering, there's math, there's some of the research like that I do in astronomy itself, and it's really not that difficult to go in ahead and apply for it. And I would suggest that everybody do that. It's an invaluable experience, and it's something that really helped me to advance both as a professional researcher, as well as my understanding of NASA and kind of the fully encompassed in broad set of careers and sort of trajectories that you can take with NASA.
Awesome. Well, I hope people get inspired by your work and Joanna and Lindsay, and then what Dr. Kutcher is doing. I'm going to ask one more question and I'll let each of you answer it. What is the most amazing fact that you've learned about this new observatory? So we'll start with Lindsay and then we'll go to Joanna.
That's such a hard question. I know normally when people ask me about the kind of most amazing things about Webb, I normally talk about the sun shield, but what's been really interesting to me lately is the wavefront sensing and control, which is basically how Webb aligns all of its mirrors to get a clear image. It aligns all of them down to picometer precision, which is, I believe, if I'm not wrong, it's 1/10,000th the width of one of your hairs. So it is
Oh, wow.
extremely precise. Yeah, it's crazy. And now that I'm taking a controls class and I'm starting to learn what goes into principles of automatic control, it's really incredible for me to think about how they've engineered this system to do that all autonomously.
That certainly is amazing. Joanna, so what's the most amazing thing that you've learned about this new telescope?
I just think it's absolutely incredible that we're essentially able to look back in time and learn and piece together this information we're missing about the formations of early galaxies. I think the science behind that is absolutely fascinating, and it's incredible that Webb can do that.
I agree. Looking back in time kind of blows a student's mind to think about how that's possible. Dakota, what about you?
So Joanna totally stole what I thought was the coolest thing about Web, which is, yeah, like at its inception, I think that one of the main questions that we wanted to ask was, what was the universe like at its earliest time? And obviously, it's powerful enough to look back and capture the light that left, at the very beginning of the universe, basically. But since that's already been covered, I think that I'll add in that over time, like over the past decade or so, the field of exoplanets has kind of exploded. So there's a lot of applications that Webb is going to have in terms of studying exoplanets that weren't really, necessarily in the plan so much as it started. And I think that that speaks a lot to kind of the cleverness of engineers and researchers to have like a dynamic and evolving plan as you move along. And it's been like a decades long sort of deal for Webb. So I think that the breadth of what we're going to be able to learn from the telescope in itself is pretty amazing to me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Dr. Kutcher, could you sew up in a summary of how students can get involved with citizen science, or any adults out there even that want to get involved with what NASA is doing before we close our program today?
Oh, yes. Come to science.nasa.gov/citizenscience and pick any project that looks interesting and get involved. They have built-in tutorials. You don't have to have a degree. You don't need to know anything in advance. They'll take you from zero to hero, and NASA scientists really do need your help. So come science with us.
Love it. Come science with us. That's perfect. So I want to thank all of our panelists today, Lindsay and Dakota, Joanna, Dr. Kutcher, and I want to invite all of our participants that are watching right now to go ahead and start asking some questions in the chat window, and we will all get in there and we will answer your questions to the best of our ability. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today for this special episode of NASA STEM Stars, and we will see everybody next time. So thanks again, STEM fans.